There are other types of percent problems that you'll also be seeing. One type are those problems dealing with percent increases or decreases. Here's an example of an increase problem. Tom's starting salary was $35,000. After 1 year, his salary was raised to $37,100. What percent increase did he get? Certainly, as you go through and do this, you can set this up so that it is into an is-of type question. I could be saying to myself, 37,100 is what percent of $35,000? If I do that and I set up my proportion, the 37,100 is the is, the $35,000 is the of, and I don't know what percent increase, so I'm going to have it equal to x over 100. Now, I'm not going to take the time to actually go through and do the math here, but you know by cross-multiplying, you can cross-multiply to figure out what x is, and in this particular case, you get x is equal to 106. So it's a 106%. However, the answer to this is not 106% increase. If he got a 100% increase, that would mean that he would double his pay, and he certainly did not do that. So in this particular case, what I need to do is I need to subtract out the 100% that he started with, which gives me an answer of 6%, and Tom got a 6% increase. For that reason, I oftentimes go through and do increase-decrease problems a different way. Instead of comparing exactly what was given, his salary was raised to $37,100, what I go through and do is I figure out the actual difference between the increased price and the original price. If I subtract 37,100 minus 35,000, he really got a $2,100 raise. So I would put down a question. What I really want to know is 2,100 is what percent of 35,000. You always compare the increase or the decrease to the original amount whenever you're doing increase-decrease problems. Now, if I go through and set this up, I'm going to have 2,100 is my is, my of is still 35,000. My percent is what I don't know, so it's x over 100. And now, when I go through, and if I go through and do that math, now I'm going to get x is equal to 6%, which is the actual answer. You can do either one of these two methods when you do increase or decrease problems. It doesn't matter which one. Notice that I subtracted in both of these. In this very first one, I subtracted the 100% at the end. In the second one, I subtracted at the very beginning, which gave me that 2,100. Here's another example, this time dealing with decrease. The list price on a cell phone is $75, but it is on sale for $54. What is the percent of decrease? Once again, as I go through and do this particular problem, I can go through and set this up in an is-of type statement. So I could say 54 is what percent of 75? And I could set up my proportion. If I go through and do that, 54 is the is, 75 is the of, and I don't know what the percent is, so it's x over 100. Once again, if I go through and cross-multiply and do my math, and I'm not going to go through the process right here, but if you do that, you should get x is equal to 72. So 72%. However, 72% is not the answer because I want the percent of decrease. 72% of $75 is the 54. But I need to go through now and do my subtraction. When I go through and do my subtraction, I need to go through and subtract 100% minus 72%, which gives me an answer of 28%, which is the percent of increase for this particular problem. Once again, I would probably go through, though, and figure out the actual difference in the prices first. The difference between 75 and 54 is $21. So I would probably go through and ask myself the question, instead, 21 is what percent of 75? Remember, you always compare to the original amount when you are doing percent increase or percent decrease. Now, when I set this up, I have 21 over 75 is equal to what over 100? And as I go through and do my cross multiplication now I am going to get an answer of 28, 28% being the actual percent of decrease. Here's a problem for you to try doing on your own first. The average cost of a movie ticket in 2002 was $5.80. The average cost rose to $8.12 in 2012. What was the percent increase? What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause this video, do the problem, and then you can start the video up and see the way that I go through and do it. I am going to do it both times, or both of the different ways, just so you can see. Okay, hopefully you have had time to go through and do the problem. I'm going to do the problem, as I said, both ways. The first way I might do the problem is I might put an is of type statement, and I might say $8.12 is what percent of $5.80. As I set up my proportion for that, I'm going to have 8.12 over 580 is equal to x over 100. And then once again, when I go through and solve this by using cross multiplication, I'm going to get an answer of x is equal to 140. It certainly is not a 140% increase, though. So now I need to go through and I need to subtract out my 100%, leaving me with a 40% increase, which is the answer to the problem. The other way to go through and do it is, first of all, to find out the actual difference in cost between the first price and the other price. So the actual difference in cost, $8.12 minus $5.80, gives me an actual difference in cost of $2.32. So now my question is going to be $2.32 is what percent of 500 or of $5.80. Remember, once again, you always compare to the original. So here's my proportion I'm going to be setting up. $2.32 is the is, $5.80 is the of, and now I set that up equal x over 100. If I go through and I cross multiply this time, now I'm going to be getting my final answer of just 40% because I had already gone through and done that subtraction. There are different types of percent problems that we also need to talk about, and here is an example. A television is on sale at 20% off. If the sale price is $400, what was the original price? In this problem, we know that the TV is on sale for $400, but the $400 is not 20% of the original price. If it's on sale for 20% off, that must mean that we are paying 80% of the price. So the question that we're really asking is, 400 is 80% of what? As I go through and set up my proportion, the 400 is the is, so that's on top. Of what? I don't know what that is. That's my x. And the percent sign is attached to the 80, so it's 80 over 100. If I go through and I do my cross multiplication and do my math, I'm going to get a final answer of x is equal to $500. So the original price was $500. Certainly, if you wanted to, you could go through and prove this. If you have something that costs $500 and you take 20% of that, 20% of $500 is $100. So you would subtract out that $100 and you would get $400 for your answer, just going through and proving that yes, that does work. Here is another example that is a little different. A store wants to sell a toy for $16. If the owner wants to make a 15% profit on everything he buys, what is the most he can pay for the item? According to the problem, that $16 that he is going to charge needs to include 100% of the cost to the store owner plus another 15% profit. So what we are really asking is $16 is 115% of what? 100% of the cost is the cost that the store owner has to pay plus another 15%. If I set this up into a proportion, 16 is my is, of, in this particular case, I do not know, that's my x. The percentage sign is the 115, so it's 115 over 100, and then I would go through and I would cross multiply. If I go through and cross multiply, my x in this particular case is going to give me, rounded off to the nearest penny anyway, $13.91. So the store owner does not want to pay any more than $13.91 for the item when he buys it from his distributor, and doing that will give him a 15% profit when he sells the toy for $16. The last type of percent problem I like to talk about is those dealing with simple interest. Let's say that you borrow $1,000 at 5% simple interest for 1 year. How much do you have to pay back? I could certainly go through and solve this using proportions. However, because this is a simple interest problem, it does add one other level to this, because I am talking about how much time I am borrowing something. So there is a formula that can be used to find the simple interest. Interest is equal to the principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time. Or I is equal to P times R times T, or even more simply, I is equal to PRT. In order to solve the problem then, I'm going to put the information from the problem into the formula. It says that the interest is equal to the principal. In this particular case, the principal is $1,000 times the rate. The rate is 5%. The rate is always going to be expressed as a decimal. 5% as a decimal is 0.05 times the time. Time, and this is the important part for this, is always expressed in years. And in the problem, I'm keeping it for 1 year. So I'm just going to multiply by 1. Now, when I go through and solve this, 1,000 times 0.05 times 1 gives me an answer when I do that of $50. So the question said, how much do I have to pay back? Obviously, I have to pay back the original $1,000 plus another $50, so I have to pay back $1,050 after that 1 year time period. The one thing to watch for with simple interest problems is the time. Let's say that instead of keeping that money for 1 year, I'm only going to keep that money for a total of 6 months. Time in this type of problem is always expressed in years. And since 6 months is half of a year, if I wanted to solve the problem now, I would be doing interest is equal to $1,000 times the rate 0.05 times 0.5 instead of times 0.1 because 6 months is half of a year. Now when I go through and solve that particular problem, I would get an answer of $25, which means that I would be paying back a total of $1,025. Just make sure whenever you do this that the time is always expressed in years, not necessarily how it is given in the problem. This concludes the videos for this module. I do have another quick check that you can find next, which will help you assess your understanding of the concepts in this video. If you do well in the quick check, you may be ready to take the assessment on this module. There are also additional worksheets and websites you can access to get more practice if you would like before taking the assessment. Feel free to contact me as well if I can help in any way. Thank you.